Hi, my name is Ase Bansu, and I'm going to be reviewing the Proaim Orion Geared head. And I actually have the wedge plate on top, which allows me to adjust the angle an additional 90 degrees or so. I'm comparing it actually to my O'Connor 1030D, which I think is a mainstay of filmmaking. And to understand the purpose of a geared head, we have to go back in time a little bit in the filmmaking world. And a long time ago, people were using film cameras, and those cameras were extremely heavy. And so to move those cameras, they actually needed to use this sort of geared system, which gave them a lot more control and allowed them to move very, very, very heavy cameras. At some point, O'Connor came along and invented the fluid head. Now, the fluid head is a system which allows you to essentially move your camera, and it uses a fluid system for resistance. Now, fluid heads are actually really, really dominant nowadays for a lot of newer filmmakers because they're really easy to use and it's sort of very intuitive. Now, there's a problem though, is that geared heads actually give you much more control than you're ever going to get with a fluid head. But they're a lot less common. And so a lot of filmmakers in LA, or a lot of traditional filmmakers like Roger Deakins, are really big into using geared heads. Every time he's about to do a shoot, he basically goes through and practices doing figure eights. And figure eights are basically a way to give yourself, or to refresh yourself on how you can actually control your geared head using a somewhat complicated movement that's not traditionally used in actual films. Now, I think both these heads are really, really great, but one of these is a $2,000 head, and one of these is about a $7,000 head. And even with this $7,000 fluid head, you still cannot get the same level of control than you can get out of using a $2,000 geared head. Now, the other issue, though, is we have to talk about doing something called a whip pan, or really, really fast camera movements. Now, geared heads are great, but they are not designed to do really fast camera movements. And in those situations, you really do want to use something like a fluid head. But for any time where you need a lot of control and a lot of precision and movement, and you can actually see it as I'm doing it right now, you can see that a geared head is going to give you a much greater degree of control. Now, this Proaim Orion actually has 2 gears for each axis, so you can basically give yourself a greater degree of freedom in terms of speed of movement when you're moving it in the horizontal or vertical axis, and control it that way as well. And I'm going to say this, if you've never shot on a geared head before, you really do want to sort of try out something like the Proaim Orion as an introductory geared head. Now, there are other geared heads like the Ari head, and that Ari head, the Ari head 2, is about $15,000. And I would say this, even if you are planning on shooting on something like the Ari head or anything similar to that, it really is a great idea to actually have a Proaim geared head at home to actually practice with. And then if you need to actually go on a shoot, to use something like the Ari Geared Head 2 for a much more complicated shoot or much heavier camera. But I think for the Proaim Orion, for most of your needs, it should actually meet them. And for most films that you're shooting on, it will give you such a degree of control. And that's something that a lot of filmmakers using fluid heads will not be able to duplicate. And I think a lot of professionalism in camera is really showing a lot of execution and a lot of control over how the camera moves. And a geared head gives you that. While a fluid head, although convenient and easy to use and easy to learn, doesn't give you the same level of control. And you can see right now that my Proaim's geared head at this point is absolutely buttery smooth. And it does take a little bit of adjustments to get it to that point. Once you've got it there, you have something in a filmmaking tool that's going to really add a lot of professionalism and a lot of class to your filmmaking. Anyways, my name is Ase Bansu, and this is the Proaim Orion.